This is going to be a 5 to 7 minute speech. And this is out of Storytelling Manual. It's the third one, the moral of storytelling. Okay. So, heart attack. Who knew? From George Hazard.
As I get started here, this is Tom and Roxanne right here. Tom, I don't feel well. Look at my pulse. It's 121. I think I need to go to the hospital. Tom and Roxanne and I were sitting in their backyard. It was a wonderful day. It was 70-some degrees, no wind. Cheyenne, that's pretty good. And we were trying to decide on where we were going to go for lunch. Finally, it was decided. We were going to go to Poor Richard's. But then something happened. I started getting a pain right here in my left shoulder. And before I knew it, it radiated down into my arm, right into my fingers. They even started to tremble. Then a moment later, I noticed that my left jaw was starting to get all tight, achy. Then I broke out into a sweat. They're going to lunch. They're heading toward the car. And that's when I looked at my heart rate, which my iWatch monitors all the time, and it was 121. And that's when I told Tom, I don't feel well. Now, I don't know what the symptoms of a heart attack are, but indeed I was having one. And I knew I was in trouble. But what I'd like to do is go over some of the symptoms of a heart attack. So that way, should it ever happen, you'll have a clue. Because sometimes you don't want to be clueless in this case. And I'll hand these out at the end, a list of all of them. Chest pain or discomfort? Nope, not me. Left arm pain? Yep, big time. Number 7 on a 1 to 10 scale, by the way. Shortness of breath? Nope. Jaw pain? Yep. Sweating? Yeah. Rapid or irregular heartbeat? Yep. Lightheadedness? No. Fatigue? No. Nausea? Indigestion? Heartburn? Stomach pain? Nope. So you see, you don't have to have all these symptoms in order to have a heart attack. Apparently, you only need a few of them. You could be in trouble. But I recently learned that 50% of the people who are having heart attacks died within the first hour of those symptoms appearing. 50%. So time is of the essence. Now, let's find out what happened to me as we decided, well, we better go to the hospital. First thing I did is I popped an aspirin because I thought I was having a heart attack. And in fact, my iWatch, when I look back at my iWatch, I can see exactly when everything happened because that pain that started in my arm started around 10:43. And then at 10:50, that's when I told Tom of my distress. And at 10:55, we were pulling up to the emergency room. So we got there pretty quickly. I was flummoxed, you might say, to know what was about to happen. Oh, Tom and I walked into the emergency room and we patiently waited for the nurse to help a mother and her sick child. But as soon as I said I was having left arm pain and jaw pain, they put me in a wheelchair and moved me right into an exam room. And a moment later, a technician came in and set me up for an EKG. It took, well, the whole process took maybe 2 minutes. And she looks at the results and says, I'll be right back. A minute later, she comes in and says, I'm going to move you to another room. And it's going to get busy. Well, we went to this other room, and there was lots of people in that room. Somebody to help me get off the wheelchair and onto the gurney. Other people taking all my clothes off and putting me in a hospital gown. Others still setting me up for more EKGs. And still others shaving my arm and my groin. My dignity right now didn't matter because I came to the realization that they were trying to save my life. So as soon as they got me all hooked up, wired up, they whisked me up to the upstairs room to a place called the cath lab. And that's where they did an angioplasty. And that's where they put a balloon in and expand the artery back out. And once they did that, they put a stent in. And a stent is kind of like a little metal sleeve to keep the artery open. Time was of the essence. You know, it turns out that my artery was 100% blocked. So, and it would have been just minutes before my heart tissue would have started dying. That's why time was so valuable. I didn't realize how critical it was. You know, as we were in there, they didn't ask what my insurance was. They didn't even ask my name. They just, took me right back in. They didn't ask me to sign anything. You know, at times they would ask me for a verbal authorization. Like, do I have your authorization to resuscitate you if your heart stops? Kind of scary. But that's how critical time was. Now, I mentioned that I had taken an aspirin before going to the hospital, and that was actually the good thing to do. Turns out that on WebMD, I looked that up just the other day, and it says that when you take an aspirin, it keeps the clot from growing in your heart, so that way it'll minimize it at best. But if you were to call 911, they might advise you to chew an aspirin while you waited for the ambulance, or the ambulance crew might give you an aspirin on the way to the hospital. And the hospital asked me if they were about to give me an aspirin. I said I had already taken one, and they were glad to hear that. But every year, 610,000 people die of a heart attack. That's a lot of folks, and I was almost one of them. So I only want you to remember two things today. One, the symptoms of a heart attack. And two, you have a very short time frame to react to that. You can't tough it out, because the only alternative is death. Mr. Toastmaster. You got the signs and symptoms? Hey, let me show this. Sure, go for it. See this? This is my iWatch. See the spike right in the middle? That's when it hit me. That was 10:43 to what? 10:40.